What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And I know I'm a little bit late to the party on this one, but this weekend I finally got around to watching Oppenheimer, the newest Christopher Nolan film, who, as many of you may or may not know, is one of my favorite film directors still working in the industry today. So naturally, this was one of my most anticipated films going into this year, despite the fact that Tenet, the previous movie he directed, was a huge misfire and the worst of his filmography, in my opinion. You guys know I've seen a lot of new releases this year, but most of the time I wait for movies to go on to streaming or I watch them at a drive-in theater. Well, unfortunately, this wasn't showing at any of the drive-ins in my area because it was shot on 70mm film. So reluctantly, I decided to go to a normal movie theater for the first time since January 3 years ago. And it wasn't disappointing in the slightest, because Nolan has once again provided us with an unparalleled cinematic experience. As everyone has been saying, all the actors here are at the top of their game. This might be the most massive cast of actors I've ever seen in a movie. After starring in Nolan's films for over a decade, Cillian Murphy finally gets a leading role. And he proves that he's worthy and more than capable of carrying a film like this. Of course, all the heavy hitters like Emily Blunt and Matt Damon never disappoint, but man, what a return to form for Robert Downey Jr. In this film, he proves that he can still act and deliver lines of dialogue that aren't just, "I am Iron Man." Even the smaller cast members give memorable performances. Alden Ehrenreich, Rami Malek, even Devin Bostick of Diary of a Wimpy Kid fame. Who would have thought he'd be starring in a film like this? Frickin' Gary Oldman is in this movie, and I didn't even know who he was playing until his name showed up in the end credits. And that's what this film is really about. Character, something Nolan gets criticized for quite often, that he has weak characters. A statement that I disagree with wholeheartedly, but what does strike me about this film is it's the first time Nolan has ever made a film solely centered around a character, or more specifically, a real person. If I were to boil down Nolan's films into their bare essentials, I would say they consist of three major components: concept, character, and theme. But most of the time, he comes up with the concept first and must incorporate those aforementioned components into it. This time around, he started with character and had to structure the theme and concept around that, which made for a far different experience than what I'm used to from Nolan. As a matter of fact, when it ended, I said out loud, that didn't feel like a typical Nolan film, and I think that's the reason why. Another common point of criticism for Nolan's films is the sound design, people complaining that the dialogue can't be heard over the sound effects and score. But I've never found that to be a problem, and I thought the sound mixing in this film was immaculate, in all honesty. Rather unsurprisingly, Ludwig Göransson does a phenomenal job here. His score, combined with the immersive sound design, creates a repetitive, loud, booming sound, somewhat reminiscent of the ticking clock effect that Hans Zimmer was able to achieve with his scores for Interstellar and Dunkirk, which contributes to the film feeling massive in scale, despite it being a rather intimate story at its core. Look, you all know that I really enjoyed Mission Impossible 7. For what it is, it's a lot of fun, but I found the simple conversations and arguments in Oppenheimer far more suspenseful than any of the action scenes in that film, which is a testament to Nolan's skill as a filmmaker and Göransson's talent as a composer. At this point, I can say with confidence it was a good call for him to step away from Mando Season 3 to work on this, and I hope he sticks around from this point on. It seems like he's Nolan's new go-to guy after Hans Zimmer, with them having worked on this and Tenet together. Just like so many of Nolan's other films, Memento, Insomnia, The Prestige, and Interstellar to name a few, Oppenheimer ends the same way it begins, with Nolan showing us an image. An image we don't fully understand the significance of until later in the story, at which point everything becomes crystal clear. The symbolic imagery throughout the entire film was honestly brilliant. The way Nolan presents these major historical events isn't with the same overbearing gravitas we're used to seeing in films like this. We don't see the gruesome devastation of the Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombings. Instead, the gravity of the circumstances is presented to us subtly through Oppenheimer himself. And that leads me into my one minor gripe with this movie. It's been well documented at this point that it's rated R, to my knowledge the first of Nolan's films to receive that rating, and as previously stated, there are no scenes of gratuitous violence, or even language for that matter. There are, however, some scenes of nudity that, dare I say, didn't fit in the film. Now, this isn't just because seeing people naked makes me kind of uncomfortable, which it does, but I found these scenes didn't match the tone the rest of the film had established. These scenes do serve a story purpose, and I understand the reason for their inclusion, but they just felt incongruent with the rest of the film, and for the briefest of moments, I was pulled out of the experience. But who knows, perhaps upon rewatching it, that won't bother me as much. I'm genuinely curious to see how well it will hold up on rewatches, because at the moment, I can't quite tell if it's as good as I think it is, or if it was just the experience of watching it in a theater that enhanced my enjoyment of it so much. Either way, this is the first time in a while where I've finished watching something and thought to myself, that was a real movie. Not just a badly written, disgusting piece of CGI garbage, but a film that was a labor of love from everyone involved, made by one of the few filmmakers left in Hollywood who still respects the art form and is willing to give it his all to engage and challenge his audience. I think it's safe to say that this is my favorite movie of 2023, and it'll be pretty difficult for anything else to beat it. Stay tuned for my Christopher Nolan ranking, which I will hopefully be making very soon. And you guys let me know, what are your thoughts on Oppenheimer? Do you agree with me that it is a cinematic masterpiece, or do you disagree with me and think that it is kind of overrated? Just whatever your thoughts are, please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.